Hi, Math A. We are doing 5.3D lesson, and this is on page 44 and 45 in your lesson packet. So go ahead and take out page 44 and 45. So this says percentage involves part to whole relationships. Last lesson we talked about both part to part and part to whole, but when we're talking about percent of something, we're talking about the part to something whole. If we use percent in a proportion equation, we write the percent as a fraction out of 100, like so. For example, 72% is 72 out of 100. In a percent proportion equation, we would also be looking to find one of three possible missing pieces of information. The percent out of 100, we could be finding the part or the whole. So this is like if you had a test and the test wasn't 100 questions, maybe it was 50 questions and you got 40 out of 50 correct, you could then find what percent out of 100 did you get on that test. Okay, so this is an important setup to remember. So for 1 through 3, define a variable for the unknown quantity and set up the proportion. So for number 1, a study reveals 252 out of 350 students in 7th grade like to read. What percent like to read? Write a proportion equation to solve this equation. So I want you to think about, it gives us a couple pieces of information here. Is it giving us the percent? Is it giving us the part? Is it giving us the whole? Try to figure out what is this problem giving us, and then try to write our proportion. So you can pause the video now to try that yourself. Okay, so if we reread this problem, I see 252 out of 350. So 252 is the part and 350 is the total or the whole. So if I'm setting up this percent equation, it says what percent? That means that X is going to represent the percent. So I can say X over 100 is equal to my part over my whole, which is 252 out of 350. Now, we're going to solve these like we did last class. You could do this in a couple different ways. You could say, how do I get from 100 to 350? What would I have to multiply by? In this case, you would have to multiply 100 times 3.5. So then you would have to multiply X times 3.5, or since we're going back this way, we could divide 252 by 3.5. The other way that you could do this problem is we could cross multiply, or we learned it last time as cross multiplying or that little butterfly. So this means that I would multiply 252 by 100 and set that equal to X times 350. So then 252 times 100 is 25200, 25,200 equals 350 times X. And then on both sides, I could divide by 350, divide by 350. And then when I typed this into a calculator, 25200 divided by 350, that's going to get me 72. So that means that X is equal to 72. And that means that X is equal to 72%. So 72% of students in 7th grade like to read. So if we're going to go to number 2, it says 72% of students in 8th grade like to read, and there are 350 students in 8th grade. How many students in 8th grade like to read? Write the proportion equation to solve this question. You might notice something similar here. So let's go ahead and set up this proportion. I would pause the video and try it yourself first. So it gives you the percent this time. So if we're going to use this little proportion equation right here, it says 72 out of 100 is equal to the part out of the whole. we are now looking for the part. So we could write x is now the part out of 350. So in this case, x is the part of students. And you could do this in a couple ways. You could say, okay, well, 72 divided by 100 is going to get me 0.72. And then x over 350. In order to get x alone, I want to get rid of that 350 in the denominator. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 350. So then this will cancel over here. And then I can come over to my calculator and say, okay, 0.72 multiplied times 350, that's going to get me 252. And if you're wondering where we're getting that number or why it sounds familiar, because when we do 252 out of 300, that's 72%. And we happen to have 350 students in both of these problems. If we were to read this next problem, let's say 72% of students in the 6th grade like to read, and we know that 252 students like to read. That means that this is a part and this is a part, but we don't know how many students are in the 6th grade. We could already tell because we know if there are 252 students as the part, and that part is equal to 72 students, then we're going to get our answer of 350 because we now have the percent and we now have the part. Now we're just missing the whole. And 72 over 100, we know from this problem, and we know from this problem that that x is going to be 350 students. So for number 4 and 5, define a variable for the unknown quantity. Write and solve a proportion to find the answer to the questions below. Write your answer in a complete sentence. 4, you are taking a math test and you get 32 problems correct on the test, and your grade is 82%. How many problems are on the test? This is a very, very realistic question because really you need to know how to do this math to figure out what grade you got on a quiz or test. So in this problem, it gives us 2 pieces of information. It gives us that you got 32% or 32 questions correct and that your grade is 82%. It says how many problems were on the test. So right away, we should know that we are looking for the total problems or the whole. So the whole number of problems that are on the test. So when I set this up, I now know my percent is 80 out of 100. And I now know that my part is 32, but I do not know how many problems are on the test. You might also want to write this at this point, like 80%, 0.80. 0.80 is the same as 80 times 80 over 100. 80% of the whole, which is x, is equal to 32. You could also write it like that. This and this equation are actually the same. They'll give you the same answer. We've just kind of moved some things around. So if I go to solve this now, if I were to solve this one, I have to think about how would I get x by itself. In this case, I would get x by itself by just dividing by 0.8 on both sides. So 0.80 divided by 0.8 will cross out and isolate x. And then I can type in 32 divided by 0.8 is equal to 40 questions. And then I have to ask myself, does that make sense? Are we looking for a larger part or a smaller part? And it does make sense because it gave us the part of the test, which was 32 questions, and we were looking for the whole. On this one, we could cross multiply this. So that would be 80 times x, or 80x, equals 100 times 32. 100 times 32 is 3,200. and then we still have 80 times x. I want to isolate x, so I'm going to divide by 80 on both sides. So that will cancel. And I will just have x is equal to, whenever you have the same number of zeros on the top and bottom, you can actually just cancel because it's just simplifying it. And then 320 divided by 8, I always think, okay, well, what's 32 divided by 8? I know that's 4, and then I can add a 0. So again, we're getting the same answer. And so on your test, if you got 32 problems right, you would do 32 divided by 40. That gets me 0.8, which is the same as 80%. So this math test over here had a total of 40 problems. So now we're talking about your best friend takes a math test. Oh, that math test also has 40 problems. She solves 75% of the problems correctly. How many problems did your friend get correct? Well, right away, you should think, if this test had the same number of problems as this test, is your friend going to solve more or less the problems than 32? If she got 75% and you got 80% over here. So right away, you should realize she solved less problems correct than 32. And in this case, it gives us the percent. So 75 out of 100. And this time, we now know the total problems, but we don't know how many problems she got correct. So X can be the part or number of correct questions. In order to solve this, you could cross multiply and do 75 times 40 equals 100 times x. Then you would solve it like any other problem. 75 times 40, you would type into your calculator and then simplify on both sides by dividing by 100. The other way you could do this is say, okay, I know that 75 divided by 100 is equal to 0.75. The right side didn't change at all, but now in order to isolate x, I'm going to multiply both sides times 40 because I know that 40 divided by 40 will cancel out, so I can get x by itself. Now I can take my calculator and say, okay, 40 times 0.75 equals 30 questions. And I have to think about this, does that work out? If you got 80% and you got 32 questions right, and she got 30 questions right and she got 75%, we can double check. 30 divided by 40 questions is equal to 0.75 or 75%. So moving on to the next page here. Homer earns $250 a week and lives in a state that taxes income at 5%. I should probably live in that state. It's not very much tax. So Homer earns $250 a week. That's going to be the total. We have, remember, we're always trying to find percent out of what 100. In this case, it gave us the percent. So the percent is 5 out of 100. We're just trying to figure out how much does Homer pay in state tax each week. So if we're going to set this up as a part to whole, the percent is 5 out of 100%. And the total amount of money that Homer earns is $250. We want to know how much money is 5% of $250. So X would represent the money Homer pays in tax each week. So you could do this in a couple different ways. You might be seeing right now that 100 multiplied times 2.5 will get you to 250. So if I did 5 multiplied times 2.5, 5 times 2.5, you could put that into your calculator, and that would get you $12.50. So Homer would pay $12.50 just in tax each week. You could have also cross-multiplied and done 5 times 250 equals 100 times x. So 100 times x is equal to 1,250. Divide by 100. Divide by 100. X would still get you 12.5. So pause and go ahead and try this next one on your own. Tony bought a CD on sale for $3 off of the original price of $15. What percent was the CD marked down? Marked down means what percent was that discounted? Go ahead and try this one on your own. Okay, so it says that the CD was $3 off of the original price of $15. So $3 out of the total cost of $15 is going to equal to just the percent that it was discounted out of 100. So I want to see, okay, how much percent did I save? So X is the discount percent. So if I wanted to solve this one, I would probably just end up multiplying by 100 on both sides, not even cross multiplying. Because if I multiply by 100 on both sides, right away I can cancel here and cancel here. And when you multiply a fraction by a number, it's just kind of like multiplying by that number over 1. So this would be 300 divided by 15 is equal to X. I think about how many times does 15 go into 30? Or what's 30 divided by 15? That would be 2, but I have one more 0. So X is equal to 20. So the percent that CD was marked down is that CD was marked down 20%. So this CD was marked down by 20%. Okay, so it's really important that we're understanding discounts and increases, because eventually we're going to do problems where we're going to say this was marked down and then it was marked down again, or this was marked up and it was marked up again. So 5.3D is your homework. Go ahead and start that now, and I will see you guys next class.